You guys have asked for it and we're bringing it straight to you. House first home with capital gains around 450 to 600. InvestorKit's lead research analyst Junge Ma is back again to unpack the data. We're talking Victoria, zooming into the LGA, and then specifically to the area that you guys have sent in.
Victoria's construction activity has been the highest among all states. Melton population growth naturally is good, 4% year on year. The inventory here now is...
Okay, so it's huge. Giving you guys a detailed answer on if this area is a no or a go. 450 to 600, is it a no or is it a go?
For short-term capital growth, it would be...
So if you've been thinking about investing in Melbourne, more specifically, a little bit more of outer Melbourne's northwestern suburbs, you're going to enjoy this episode. My name's Todd Sloan. This is the Pizza and Property Podcast, and this episode is powered by Property Strats, InvestorKit, and the Property Developer Network. More about our amazing show sponsors in the show notes below. Right now, let's jump straight into the episode with Junge Ma. Junge Ma, talk areas. Melbourne again. How are you?
Not bad, and I love Melbourne.
Me too. And we're getting to know it incredibly well over the past few months because it's all everyone is sending in. And today we're going to be talking about Diggers Rest. This one's actually been sent in by Marcus. So Marcus, thank you for sending this one in, mate. We're talking about a house. And what is exactly written here? House first home with capital gains around 450 to 600. So I'm guessing he's saying he's basically wanting to buy his first home. So maybe this isn't so much an investment property.
I think so.
But he's really wanting to make sure he's planting the seed somewhere that's got some strong potential for capital growth with that budget of 450 to 600. So as always, why don't we start with Victoria or Melbourne, and then let's zoom into the LGA of Diggers Rest and then actually go into Diggers Rest, answering Marcus's question if it's a no or if it's a go.
You mean Victoria?
Victoria, sorry, Victoria.
Yes. Yeah, we've been talking about Victoria's population growth and economic strength. So today, let's talk about something else.
Okay, what do you got?
Victoria's construction activity has been the highest among all states.
Okay.
And I've got some numbers here. In the 15 months up to February 2025, the total number of building approvals of all dwelling units, including houses and apartments and townhouses, in Victoria was 66,791.
Okay, that sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
But can we have some like context to that to sort of put that in perspective?
Right. In Victoria, we have 2.7 million dwelling units in total. And the number of building approvals takes 2.5% of its total dwelling stock.
Right. Okay. So a fair bit.
A fair bit. And I guess bear in mind that is for whole Victoria. Some regional towns do not have a really high building approval rate. So these new building approvals, I guess they're all happening in those fairly bigger towns, especially Melbourne.
And is there much of a balance between like units and houses? Because I know you noticed using the word dwellings. So this is kind of like putting everything together, correct?
Yes, both units and houses.
And so is it a lot more more units that are actually being built and being approved?
Not really different. For example, just in February, there was 3,032 apartment units being approved.
Okay.
At the same time, there was around 2,800 houses being approved. So similar.
So it's not like there's 500 houses and 3,000 units. Like there's,
Right, they're quite balanced, I guess.
Got it.
And to compare that with other states, I just picked New South Wales as a representative.
When similar size kind of population, so we're not comparing it to Adelaide or anything?
Yes.
Yep.
In New South Wales, they have a bit more dwelling units, 3.2 million. Higher than the 2.7 million in Victoria. But they don't have as many building approvals in the past 15 months. The total number was 54,500.
54,500. And we're talking 2.7 million dwellings versus 3.2 million dwellings. 66. Okay, so there's a lot more activity happening in Victoria.
Right. The building approval rate in New South Wales is actually 1.7%. You can see the obvious difference between these two states.
Is this something people need to be concerned about as far as oversupply in Melbourne?
It could be a small concern for Melbourne for the overall recovery of the market as you are having more and more supply coming in. I guess it'll be harder for you to come back to faster growth.
So I know we're talking Victoria, but if I can zoom in just a touch more to Melbourne with this as well, because it sounds like this is really where the focus is. What would that number need to be for you to be more, because your answer was a bit like, yeah, it's a bit of something to look at, but for your answer to be more like, this is a concern, if that number jumped from like 66,000 dwellings to like 100,000 dwellings or like 120, like almost doubled, is that like, yeah, okay, now there's potentially going to be an oversupply, or does that number need to like quadruple? Like where's the line?
There's no clear line.
Okay.
We always want to compare this this number or this building approval trend with the population growth trend.
Right. So even if it did quadruple, but then if population growth...
yes.
Got it.
As long as demand is high enough to meet the supply, it's still okay.
Anything else you wanted to talk about with Victoria or Melbourne before we start zooming into the LGA of Diggers Rest?
I guess that's pretty much it. We've got plenty of information of Victoria in previous episodes.
Easy. Well, so now Diggers Rest, what actually is the LGA?
The LGA for Diggers Rest is Melton. The LGA with, again, large amount of new builds.
There's a lot of building approvals.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. And Diggers Rest, it is actually a little bit isolated. Can we actually bring up a map on screen at the moment, just for anyone else that's like, well, whereabouts is Diggers Rest in relation? Because we're not talking about something that's ages away from town. I think we're, 30 odd Ks away, something along those lines. But it is pretty isolated within itself, isn't it?
Yeah, it is around 40 kilometers to Melbourne CBD.
40 kilometers. Okay.
Pretty much isolated. The closest town is Sunbury town centre. Yeah, there's still farmlands in between them.
Okay. So if we're talking about the LGA of Melton then, because Melton is usually talked about within context to like Melton South, like the actual suburbs. But tell us a little bit more about the LGA of Melton.
Melton, as a faster growing LGA, population growth naturally is good, 4% year on year, much higher than Melbourne's average, which is 2.8%. Unemployment rate there is slightly higher than Melbourne's, 5.2%.
So 5.2%, why? What do you reckon it is?
My theory, it could be related to the house price points. Because it's an affordable area, we could be looking at more lower income groups.
Potentially below the blue collar.
Yes. And also when you're trying to look for a job and you want to save on either renting or living costs.
Naturally, you're going to the cheapest place.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. That makes sense. So basically you're looking at this as the unemployment rate might be higher simply because of it's more affordable. Yeah. Got it. Unemployment rate looking at 5.2%. Population growth, very healthy at 4%. So what is that, like 1.2% roughly higher than Melbourne? Yep. What's next on the list?
We actually have its last 10-year house price growth here. It's very good, 88% in 10 years. That is actually much higher than Melbourne's average.
Yeah, I'm surprised to hear you say that. 88%, okay.
Yeah, it could be because of the improvement in house quality or house conditions as they build a lot of more and more new houses or larger houses. The median naturally increased from the previous level to a higher level. That is to be added on the natural value growth. That
makes perfect sense. Okay, because if you've got a suburb that historically has, let's just say, 1,000 3-in-1s that were built in the 70s, and then all of a sudden you've got all of these new, another 300 4-and-2s, 2-story cinema, all of a sudden the whole median house price is starting to lift up.
Yes.
Even if the others didn't change. Got it. Okay. That's a really good point. So 88% over the past 10 years. Talk to me about the past like sort of 3 months, 12 months, something a little bit more shorter term.
In the past 12 months, the growth wasn't really ideal, just 1.5%. Just slightly higher than Melbourne's no growth, but still no material difference.
When it comes to growth, the difference between none and 1.5 isn't really that much, is it?
Yeah. And then if we look at rental growth, it's better than price growth. 8.3%
Past 12
year-on-year
months.
rental. Yes.
Yeah, right. Okay. So rental growth looking good. And that might be something that Marcus isn't as interested in, being like potentially the way the question's worded. Sounds like if you're a first home buyer. But for anyone looking at investing though, I'm assuming you're about to talk about a reasonable yield then?
Yes, definitely. Now yield for Melton LGA is 4.3%.
4.3%.
Relatively healthy if we look at Melbourne's, just 3.7%.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about the LGA of Melton before we get into Diggers Rest?
I guess just one point to add, that is the high building approval rates there. Most people would be aware of it already. Building approval rate, now we're looking at 7.6%.
Now let's just whack some context into that real quick. Give me another building approval rate for almost anywhere else.
A few months ago, we were talking about the Eastern LGA of Nillumbik. In Nillumbik, the building approval rate was just 0.6%.
So 7%.
Versus 0.6.
Okay, so it's huge.
Right. That's the difference between a new area and a well-established area.
I tend to jump the gun on this, but I'm already feeling like this potentially, if he's not looking at this as an investment, like I say he, like Marcus, if you're not looking at this as an investment, this is potentially going to be a go for him as far as like affordability and everything.
Yeah.
But as an investment, that's a lot of new stock coming to the market.
Right. So your short-term growth could be not really strong.
All right, why don't we talk Diggers Rest?
Yes, the suburb of Diggers Rest, median house price there is 652,000. It is higher than Marcus's price range, but we just did a search on CoreLogic. You can still find plenty of decent houses within your budget.
I just pulled up a sales history report here, and with 500 square meters being the minimum lot size, so there is possibly even still less, but I'm looking at this more like from a house perspective. Yeah, 75 Clatter Highway Diggers Rest, that sold for 470. However, there were no internal photos of that one, so as someone that used to be an agent, I can tell you generally when there's no internal photos, there's a reason for it. Not all the time, but most of the time. But otherwise, there's a ton of sales here in the like 500, 515, 520, 530, like in those kind of low to higher fives. It sounds like it really fits his price point.
I think so, yeah.
So his price point, check. He can achieve that.
Yes.
As far as growth's concerned, everything that you're talking about with the LGA of Melton, where Diggers Rest is, doesn't sound like it's like primed for a lot of growth. But does Diggers Rest change? Is that like a bit of a different story in the data?
It's actually quite in line with Melton, the LGA. The inventory here now is 7 months of stock.
7?
Yes, it's much higher than the usual balanced level.
For anyone playing at home, that's usually around 3 months of stock. So what is it normally, like sort of 2.5, 3, that's okay?
Yeah, that's the healthy level.
Yeah.
Even Melbourne, I believe the average inventory is now around 3. Not really crazy.
Yeah, okay. So growth, this is already painted a picture of not anytime soon.
But the thing is, it is high in supply.
Yeah.
Well, it is high in supply. The affordability could be its advantage. In the short term, as long as our interest rates stay high, affordability can still attract lots of home buyers.
Absolutely. Well, buying something with a 4 or a 5 in front of it, it's getting less and less common, especially if we're talking about 40 Ks away from like a global city. So inventory levels, no good. Building approvals, quite high. Affordability, great.
Yes.
So we've ticked one of the boxes for Marcus, but otherwise, as far as capital gains is concerned, are there any other metrics that you want to go through before I feel like you give me the inevitable, it's a no?
There's, I guess, one thing good to mention. That is, we do see some signs of recovery.
Okay.
In market pressure.
Story twist. I like this. All right.
Yeah, it's for example, inventory. Inventory, it is high, but it is already lower than last year.
Where was it before?
It was 9+ last year.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going down. It's on the way. It's on the way of going down.
So if we want to look at this positively, inventory levels are dropping significantly. Like they're still high, but they're dropping quite a lot.
Yeah, it is dropping. And days on market as well. Days on market is 32% lower than a year ago.
But what are the days though?
It is 31 days. 31 days. 31 days. It's not a bad days on market at all.
Okay. All right. So if we're getting to the pointy end of things, talk to me a little bit about vacancy rate. Is that pretty good, pretty bad?
Vacancy rate, it's not looking so good. Mm-hmm. Depending on which data source we are looking at, because at a suburb level, vacancy rates can vary a lot. If we just look at the SQM research data, it has been increasing in recent months.
Okay.
And currently it is 3.4%.
3.4. That's huge. Okay.
That is that's not a very healthy vacancy rate.
And it's been increasing.
It's been.
Right. Okay. So whilst our inventory levels is still pretty big at 7, it's at least going down. Mm-hmm. Days on market 31. They're not too bad, but they're going down. But vacancy rate going up.
Yes. Probably the same reason as Verbies. A lot of new builds are coming onto the market. To both the sales market and the rental market.
So as far as Marcus is concerned, though, if he's actually looking at this as a first homeowner, I guess he's not as fussed with that. But if you're looking at this as an investor, you got to factor in some real vacancy here.
Right.
So officially then, Diggers Rest, 450 to 600, is it a no or is it a go?
If we only look at the price point, I think it's a go. But if we are also looking for short-term capital growth, it would be a no. Because really in the short term, I don't see really strong capital growth.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Wow. But I mean, value for money though, as far as like you said, price point, there's a lot of stuff in the 5s, and there was even one that snuck in the 4s with that kind of block size. So if you're on a limited budget, and maybe Marcus, that is what you're dealing with, or maybe you're listening to this thinking, yeah, I'm approved for 450, 550. What can I do? If it's about getting nothing or getting something, maybe it's worth looking into, but I still can't help but think there's potentially better areas you could be investing for 550. I'm imagining you're nodding your head right now. You'd agree with that, Jung?
There are many suburbs in Melbourne, and you don't really need to limit yourself to just one suburb.
Okay. Any final words of wisdom or anything you wanted to say on this one before we part ways today, Jung?
I guess, that's everything from me.
Perfect. Junge Ma from InvestorKit. Always a pleasure having you on the show.
Always my pleasure. Thank you so much.